Okay, so I am working on the second coat of this wicker part of my chair, and I just thought that I would give a little tips and tricks to making this look as good as possible. As you can see, these are, this is my finger, so these are very, very tiny little squares, and I'm using a tiny little brush, and this is taking a lot longer. I had a larger brush, but I left waiting for this to dry, and I didn't rinse it out, so it's kind of hard now, so I'm just letting it soak. But I kind of like using this because it lets me get into these little cracks. These are weaved, so there is space where you have to work the paint into, and using this small little brush, it is a 1-inch brush, is going to allow you to get into those spaces a lot better. And the other thing is when you're applying the paint, because it is a wicker, I go up and down, and then I cross hatch it, and that just kind of evenly spreads the paint. And then I'm going to go in and kind of pat it to make sure that if there's any paint that's built up, I'm breaking it out. So I'm going to work into these little cracks and make sure that everything is distributed evenly. My neighbors are walking by. They probably think I'm crazy. So yeah, so just make sure that you work the paint in and you get it in those little cracks, and sometimes stippling it on is going to help you get into those smaller spaces. So that's just kind of a little tip I have if you get kind of something like this that you want to repaint. Smaller brushes work a little better, and just push in through the holes and do that cross hatching motion, and it's going to evenly distribute your paint and kind of help you get into those little cracks. Okay, so another thing that you want to watch out for when you are painting furniture or anything like that is to get into the nooks and crannies, even if you think that it won't be seen. I paint it just in case, because you never know until it's done and everything's put together, and the last thing that you want is to think something's complete and then realize you missed a spot. So if you've seen here, I had to stick my brush very tightly into that space, and it might be worth it to go and buy a smaller brush or something to wiggle in there, but I'll show you why it's important. So if you're looking at the chair, and it might not be as noticeable, if you get up here through the wicker, you can see, like up in here, you can still see brown spots, and that's from the backing of the chair. And over here, it's white. So it blends in a lot better, and it looks more clean, and it's not as noticeable on the camera because it's just smaller spaces. But just make sure, my neighbors think I'm crazy. Just make sure that you are digging into those really small spaces. I would rather paint it and get it done now than have to go back when I'm ready for it to be finished and try and fix something. So yes, that's just another little tip that I've come across when painting this wicker part of the chair. And yeah, so hopefully that's something that interests you guys and is something to know if you decide to do something like this yourself. Okay, so when painting a chair, the first coat I considered the base coat. I didn't really care as long as everything had an even base. So now that I'm going over it with the second coat, and I'll show you. Okay, so this is good. So you see how you can see the paint strokes? Well, what I want to do is I want to make sure that now that I'm going to the second coat, that I'm going to continue with a one stroke. Now, so let's see if I can find a good example. Okay, so like in here, I have the cross. Well, I think it will look a lot sleeker if the paint is all going down. So I'm going through the whole chair and I'm painting down if it is a vertical line. If it's a horizontal line, I'm going to make sure this is going horizontally. And I think what that does is it just creates clean lines and it helps it look more put together, and it will help with streakiness. So after I paint on the second coat, I will probably put on one more coat and I will continue to follow the same stroke patterns that I did on the second coat to make sure that everything is flawless, all the cracks are filled in, and so that everything is just sleek and it looks complete instead of like cross hatched, and so it just looks more put together rather than just paint slapped on. So yeah, I'm finishing up the second coat right now, and then I will move on to a third coat. I probably will not be doing a third coat on this wickering just because I think I've gotten into all the cracks that are going to take it, and yeah, so I just want to make sure that I follow my paint lines, and I take this cross and elongate it with my paint strokes, and this is just gonna, again, it's gonna create cleaner lines, and it's going to look, I think personally it will look a lot more professional. So yeah, that's just my little tip for when I'm painting longer surfaces. Okay, so another thing is when you are painting and there are, oh, I got paint on my leg, and there are two pieces that meet together, there's going to be a little gap, and let's see if I can find a good one. So this guy right here, as you can see, there's no, okay, here's a good one. So there's a gap, and this one right here is not going to be seen because the cushion is going to cover it, but I've already covered this one, so I'm going to use this as an example. So what I would do is I'm going to have quite a bit of product on my brush, and I'm just going to dab it in there. And then I'm going to blend it out. And I found that painting furniture is a lot like painting your face. You put the product on, you spread it out, you blend it in, and that's kind of what you want to do with the cracks, and that's just kind of, it's going to allow there not to be any major visibility to the space, and it's also going to blend it, and it's not going to be such an eye catch when people are looking at your chair. So I just kind of and it also is going to seal it, so you're not going to get a whole bunch of crap in there. So yeah, so I just take the product, I dab it in, and then I blended it out. And then if you get any like built up, how you can see the built up paint, you just light strokes and blend that out as well. So yeah, so like painting furniture is a lot like painting your face, just different kind of product and different kind of surface. So yeah, I guess that's all I have for the cracks.